is Danielle Grandinetti. Thank you, Tony, for having me here today to share an excerpt from my historical romance, Confessions to a Stranger. Confessions to a Stranger is a Sala finalist and the first book in my Harvard and Crow's Nest series. It takes place in a small fictional town of Crow's Nest, Wisconsin, on the shores of Lake Michigan. And the excerpt I'm going to read today is between a conversation between my two heroes, David and Adelie. However, at the moment, Adelie is going by Lee, since she is on the run. David cringed at the amount of food his adult siblings wasted. As the primary breadwinner in the house during the recent economic downturn, he knew the cost of these things all too well. "Need help?" David asked, unsure how else to start a conversation with Adelie. Lee must have been lost in her own thoughts, since she had stalled potatoes half in the bowl. She seemed so self-contained, and his curiosity warred with her signals to leave her alone. She glanced down. "Distracted, I guess," she said, then finished emptying the plate. He could sense a crack in her walls, or maybe he just wanted to hear her talk. Regardless, he tried again, adding in a teasing tone with the hopes it would help her open up. "So, other than being a beautiful lady who heroically rescues children, will you tell me about yourself?" She pursed her lips, hazel eyes twinkling for the first time. "I do believe you're a flirt." "A flirt!" A laugh exploded from his belly, warming his chest on the way out. How long had it been since he'd let out such a hearty laugh, let alone flirted with a girl? "I'm sorry," he said, wiping good tears from his eyes. "I'm just so rarely accused of being a flirt these days." "Not at all, really. I guess I didn't expect to pull someone as pretty as you out of the lake today." "See, you did it again. You're incorrigible," she said, but her tone seemed to say she liked that about him. In fact, was that a glimpse of a smile lifting the corner of her mouth before she turned to the table to gather 2 more plates? The pleasure filling his chest held an addictive quality that made him want to coax a smile out of her again. "So, how did you end up at our supper table today?" She bobbed her shoulders, still collecting utensils without looking at him. "Your uncle insisted." "He's like that. Knows a good person when he sees one. Grandma, too. They read people. Rather unnervingly so." David chuckled. She was right about that. "What about you?" Finally, she turned to separate Patrick's leftovers into their proper containers. "How did you end up here with your grandma, you and your siblings?" That question. He hated answering it, but the way Lee avoided his gaze as she worked told him she wouldn't divulge more until he did. She circled the table, gathering utensils that she placed in the wash bucket. Each move was graceful and purposeful. She didn't fit in a worn-down town like Crow's Nest, but her bravery at rescuing Matt, her discomfiture when he pulled her out of the water, her willingness to stay here, his curiosity hadn't been piqued this much in ages. He lifted the fish carcass and dropped it into Grandma's garden bucket. She'd used the bones in her garden. "Grandma adopted us all while we were rather young. He could have moved out when he finished school or gone on with his life. But Grandma needed him here. His family needed him. So he'd put his dreams on hold to be the provider his dad couldn't be." Lee wrung out a dish rag. "No parents?" "Mom died when I was 12. Dad," he shrugged. What else could he say? "I don't mean to pry." Of course she didn't. She was diverting from herself. Knowing that didn't make his own story any easier to tell. There was an awkward silence as they worked in tandem to place the rest of the dishes into the wash basin. He wrestled his emotions back into their box. He should be able to handle questions about his parents by now, but no. He had to make everybody uncomfortable with how the whole situation still affected him. Enough. He didn't need to burden her with his family's troubles, even if she managed to get him to share more easily than other people. He wanted to get to know this beautiful stranger, and he might only get one night to do so. Memorial Day night, no less. "Have you seen much of Crow's Nest?" David asked as he scrubbed the dirty dishes. She grabbed a towel to dry them. "I only discovered your town this morning." She reached for another plate, her shoulder brushing his arm, wisps of her brown hair escaping her braid and catching on her sleeve. A feeling he barely recognized, longing, if he had to name it, skidded through him. He needed to tread carefully, for both their sakes, but his curiosity was too strong to ignore. To honor Memorial Day, after the parade and speeches this morning, the decorating of the gravestones this afternoon, the boats put on a nighttime light show. Captains hang lanterns from the prows and wheelhouses of their boats, illuminating the harbor, so it's as if the whole wharf comes alive, celebrating life after a day of mourning. There's music, dancing. It sounds magical. He didn't miss the wistfulness in her voice. Come for a walk with me? I'll show you. Really? She narrowed her eyes to study him. But was that a flicker of interest he detected? No obligations. He held up his hand as if swearing on the Bible in a court of law. I'll have you back before 10. I do have to work in the morning. She stared at him a beat longer, and his hope rose. Then she smiled. I'd be delighted to join you. Thank you. He grinned. Perhaps he could finally get her talking. Thank you for reading an excerpt with me from Confessions to a Stranger. If you'd like to read more, just find me at DanielleGrandinetti.com. Thanks so much.